So, welcome to my presentation. We're going to talk about effective Copilot prompting and lessons learned. My name's Auri Rahimzadeh. I'm a software architect at a company named Momentum 3 or M3 out of Oklahoma. Um, and I've done a lot of other stuff, but currently I'm a software architect at M3 and having a great time. We're a fun company. And then my personal site over there is Auri.net. I have had Auri.net for God knows how long, decades. I think I got it when I was like 18, and a friend of mine had was.org. And I was like, well, I want my name. And so this is back in like 1997, something like that. I don't know, 96. I gotta think, I gotta do the math, and it's too late to do the math. Um, and uh, I looked for RE.org, and that was the Agricultural Utilization Research Institute. So RE.org was taken. RE.com, car polish. So I was able to get RE.net. This is before we had like .xxx and all that other stuff. I also got Rahimzadeh.com for my last name. Um, and so if you go over to Rahimzadeh.com, which you don't have to do right now, I think it says quid Latin dictum like dolor sit met or something like that, or no, altum videtur, which means anything said in Latin sounds impressive. But I made jokes about it. It was great back when you could actually register anything with Network Solutions for 25 bucks. And a lot of domain names were available. I did have uh, I had rahimzadeh.net and .org, and then I decided not to renew those. And within a day, some like Iranian ISP grabbed rahimzadeh.net. So yeah, so I don't know if it's still an ISP, but anyway, that was my fun intro there. Um, so I've been using Copilot now for a number of months, and learned a lot using it. I imagine that a number of us are now treading those waters and learning where all of these AIs and LLMs and new productivity tools based on these LLMs uh, come into our lives and either make our lives better or make them worse, or maybe fair to midland, depends. So I am very curious, unless, of course, you're not allowed to use it because of some corporate policy. Does anyone in the audience have a corporate policy where you can't use it? So, okay, so we've got 6 people here other than me, and one cannot use it because of corporate policy. Did they say why? Oh, okay. So they might use Enterprise Copilot or similar. But right now, yeah. And my former employer also wouldn't let people use Copilot because they thought people would not do their jobs. And I'm like, I don't get that. It makes you a better developer in some ways. It definitely makes you think about the code you're writing and the code that it writes, because as we'll get to, it's not always right. It's not always right. So for those of you that are joining virtually, um, how many of you have a corporate policy that that you can't use uh, Copilot or any sort of like LLMs? Just raise your hand with the Teams app. I'm just curious. Hopefully everyone knows how to do that. Okay, so it sounds like nobody on the call has a corporate policy that doesn't allow it. So actually, that's pretty good. Um, that's a pretty good percentage. The reason I bring this up is I think about 9 or 10 months ago, it was more of a corporate policy. Like as Copilot and so forth came out, like over the past like 2 years. I think it's about 2 years old now. There was a preview even before that, but about a year ago, I saw a lot of companies would not allow you to use these sort of AI tools. One was fear of sharing the code. Um, Others were, who knows, just like it's going to make our developers lazy. There's so many. I heard a few different reasons. I don't remember them all, but it's nice to see that it appears to no longer be, for the most part, a corporate policy. So, what is Copilot? We're not going to talk about like all the other options that are out there now. If you're a Microsoft developer and you use like Visual Studio or VS Code, any of those flavors, JetBrains has an AI tool out there now. There's other solutions that you can use, but we're going to concentrate on Copilot today. And as part of this presentation, I first reviewed Microsoft's official prompt crafting techniques with Copilot presentation. And like some of it doesn't even work 2 months later. So that's how much things have changed. They're like, here's the kind of the response that you're going to get from Copilot. I'm like, sure you will. And some of it was pretty accurate, others weren't. So we're not going to go through their entire example, but they had some absolutely wonderful examples of how you could use Copilot to make your day better. And I'm going to show you how, what they did. It's really cool. You'll see. You can even use Copilot on the command line. Anyone tried that? It's pretty cool. Oh my gosh, I had no idea until I was going through their stuff. Just because, if you're not thinking about it, so yay. So number one, Copilot itself is not AI. Copilot is a set of tools that utilize AI. And by AI, I mean more specifically large language models. So if there's any mathematicians here that are upset that I used AI in a presentation about software engineering and it's really about LLMs, feel free to thumbs down my video. I'm just putting that disclaimer, right? This is primarily LLM stuff, but people call it AI. Branding is a thing. We're going to call it AI for the most part. Now, Copilot is not limited, of course, to just the development side. So there's the plugins, like in the IDEs. There's the Windows integration. If you've seen like the Copilot PCs, has anyone here used the Copilot feature in Windows yet? Like the latest one in Windows 11? I've actually used it to do some work for me, and it's actually kind of cool. I was just playing around with it. I'm like, hey, would you take like this document and do something with it for me? And it was kind of cool having it built in. So anyway, for what it's worth, Bing has it built in now. Obviously, like Google has their own, with Gemini, it's the latest name for it. What was it called before? Before Gemini? Like Bard. Yeah. So one letter off from barf. I'm guessing that's why they might have changed it. I don't know. And it's all over the place. I mean, AI is the term of the day. But what Copilot does for you is it abstracts a lot of the hard work. It tries to figure out what your intent is and then crafts the prompt for you. So it is not just like working directly with ChatGPT or Claude or etc. You're not directly working with the model. Behind the scenes, it's taking care of a lot of other stuff for you. Oh, good thing I opened up a bad weather. Great, right on the fingertip. Best place to have a cut. So it'll actually craft a different prompt based on hints that you give it as well. So you can leave it completely up to Copilot or give it a hint as to what you really want, like /fix. Or I think it's like /explain. There's other things you can do. You can hashtag files like in Visual Studio for context. You can select text and say, I want you to look at this and tell me why this isn't working. And it actually can do that. But you have to give it context. And then behind the scenes, it does its best to determine the best prompt and the best model. So you can switch between like, what is it? 3.5, 4.0, 4.00. I don't know all of these. Claude, and I think there's others, but behind the scenes, it does use OpenAI services. Um, so I like to explain that it's not a replacement for software engineers. By now, if you've played with Copilot long enough and asked it to write something for you, it does a so-so job at the basic stuff, but then it can't think for itself. So it's not suddenly replacing all the developers that are out there. I think if you go back, what is it, maybe a year ago, year and a half ago, we had a roundtable discussion about, is AI coming for our jobs? We were upstairs, and like some people were afraid. And I'm like, all you gotta do is use it. It's not taking your job. And I was reading about a guy on there was a joke on LinkedIn about, they're talking about this guy who fired all of his staff, all of his developers, and replace them with, he's like, I'm gonna do this all with AI and like a few interns or something. And then it was like 3 months later, he's got all these ads for all these openings for senior developers. Yeah. So the way I like to explain solutions like Copilot, it's like a really smart, eager, uh, well-read junior engineer. Very confident, that's a great word to add. And confident, that's never written a line of code in their life. Not once. And every time they write a line of code, they forget about it. So it's like, ever seen the movie 50 First Dates? It's kind of okay. It's not exactly like that, but it's funny. So your experience as a developer will be necessary as you use these tools. And I've actually seen the documentation around all these tool sets start to have that disclaimer of, hey, the better you know the code base or the stack, etc., the more you're going to get out of our tool. Don't take our tool at face value. It can be wrong. Whereas in the beginning, it was kind of like, no, we can do no wrong. And now everyone admits, okay, it's helpful, but don't take everything at face value. So, how much does Copilot cost? So, as of a couple months ago with Build, there's now a free tier. But prior to that, it was about $10 and then $20 and $40, basically. I think most developers are using the $10 tier. Anyone here? Who here has Copilot? All right, you're not using Copilot, huh? That's okay. I'm not judging you. Uh, so we got 4 out of 5 people in the audience. So if you include me, uh, you know, 5 people, we're paying the $10 a month. Or you're on the business, okay? And then how many people on the call are using Copilot? Use the raise your hand on the little raise thing. Okay, got it. That's cool. Teams actually adds it up for you. That's pretty neat. Cool. All right, so we got like 4 or 5 people on the call using Copilot already out of about 12. Okay. Oh, and whoever's talking, make sure you mute yourself. There we go. Disable mic. There we go. Cool. Yay. All right, I'm coming back to it. So, Copilot is now free. There's a gotcha, which has been pointed out to me. So it's free up to a point. There's a limited number of completions that you can have and a limited number of chats. But I mean, if you're just playing around with it, it's effectively unlimited. For what, if you're just playing around. Now, the $10 a month enables, I think, some more VS plugin features, along with unlimited prompts and chats. So you can actually come back to chats you had before where maybe it explained something to you or it gave you a code snippet. You can revisit that chat and it will stay in your history. And that's incredibly useful because you'll have different sessions on different, solutions across. I don't know if it keeps them through VS Code and VS. I don't think it does. But it's very useful to have that history. Because I'll come back to a project that I was just playing around with, like a playground project, like 3 months earlier. I'm like, what did it recommend I do? Oh, there it is, and I can find it very easily. That's super helpful. Uh, yeah, it's like it's the intern you never fire. Yeah, they're it's always there. That sounds bad saying the intern you never fire. This is yeah, it's too cheap to fire. $10 a month. My gosh. Um, so the plugins are not just for Visual Studio flavors. They're also available for Writer. So if that's your thing, JetBrains Writer, I think Xcode, other popular IDEs. If you take a look on the GitHub Copilot website, it'll explain them all to you. Now, the more expensive plans include cooler features like code reviews on GitHub, and that's pretty cool. I kind of like that idea of just like a sanity check. How many people here do code reviews? Anyone here do code reviews? Good, good. Well, no, there's a lot of organizations that don't do code reviews or don't do them properly. How many people do proper code reviews? How many people think you do proper code? How many people go, you know what? It's the end of the day and I need this to go to production, and you just pass it. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I won't ask anyone online because this is being recorded, and I don't want you to get in trouble. And you can actually lower your hands, by the way, because I imagine that you weren't all doing bad code reviews. Um, I would like to point out a book, though. I just got this book, and it's been a great read, and it's called Looks Good to Me. And it's a really great book all about code reviews and how to do them right. So if you haven't checked it out, uh, it's been a wonderful read. Check it out. Looks good to me. It's available on Amazon. And I don't remember I mean, if you go to like the author's website, you can get the ebook and the book together and pay less money. I just don't know what that one is, but look it up. Looks good to me. Um, and then, of course, even though, well, this is the GitHub Copilot, but I know that Office 365 is starting to get some Copilot integrations. Remember, it's a suite of tools creating the right prompts. It's not the AI engine. So it becomes really handy when you're just doing like correspondence and stuff. We've probably all seen AI changing things for like our email messages, things in Outlook, in Word. It can actually prompt the rest of the email or prompt the rest of the document. It can actually write things for you. So a lot of applications, even outside of code. Now, if you get the free tier, uh, it seems that by default, data sharing is turned on. That doesn't mean it's explicitly sharing your code, but it is apparently sharing its suggested snippets and code snippets. So that could be your code. Now you can turn that off. It's not required that stay on. So if you go to github.com/settings/copilot, you can turn that off. This is not an option on the paid tiers. But those tiers, I recall Microsoft says we never use your code, we never see your code, we don't store your code anywhere, at least where we could, other than it's your own model. Oh, okay. I'm not familiar with the enterprise, so heads up, enterprise has its own set of privacy settings. So let's go through the Microsoft slides. this is really the demo. We'll go through some of these, and I'll show you some of the cool prompts that you can create. So let's take a look here. I've got these notes that the Microsoft gave me, so I'm gonna try not to completely read them, but I do want to point them out. That GitHub Copilot is advertised as your AI pair programmer, but like I said, it's not AI. Now, you can go get that right now. It's effectively free. In this example, we're going to use VS Code. And like I said, there'll be plenty of time for us to have a Q&A. So if you have questions, you can ask them in the chat, and then Megan will let me know if anyone has a question. But there'll be plenty of time to campfire discussion this. I'm gonna try not doing their entire demo. It's like 45 minutes of stuff. And I just want to show you some of the cool things that you can do. So yeah. So in Microsoft's presentation, their solution was kind of like what you heard about like a year ago, which is I want you to build everything for me. And in this case, it's create a web server in TypeScript. So if you take a look, I can actually send a link to this this presentation from Microsoft, so you can walk through it yourself. But it's pretty cool. It breaks down what, at least in the presentation notes, what Copilot is actually doing behind the scenes. So when you go to Copilot and say, create a web server in TypeScript. So it gives you a UI, not the Chat GPT UI, it's just its own UI. And then it determines if you provide any additional context. Did you highlight any text? Did you highlight any files? Did you specify a particular file or folder? If you didn't, it's probably thinking you're going to create a brand new solution. And then it crafts the prompt and identifies which model that prompt should go to or what it should be for. So should it be GPT 3.5, 4.0? Here in the notes, it talks about how 3.5 is fast, but 4 is accurate. So which one would be better for this solution? And then after it's picked that, it actually sends the request over to OpenAI. The response comes back, and it interprets that response and how to present it back to you. So rather than just getting the simple technical answer, it tries to blend that into the UI, format everything for you, etc. That's not something you just get normally out of like a Chat GPT. It's just not the way it is. So like I said, it is a tool. It's not an AI. The newer versions of Copilot can actually make the file changes for you. This is new in the past couple of months. It used to only have like a copy option, but now it can actually make the changes in the files for you and even ask you to accept it. So it'll make the changes in the right areas. So if you say something is wrong with my code, fix it for me, they'll say, oh, I see what's wrong. You forgot to define this variable, or you forgot to initialize it. And then there's a button to make the code change. And it'll make the code change right in front of you with a little option to accept or decline. And that's pretty cool because it actually goes and opens the right file and makes the changes. So your chat window can actually be about another file or have context, like I'm on like an index.html. I'm like, I'm not seeing the data I'm supposed to see here for, let's say, the list of vehicles. And it'll say, oh, well, you never passed that in. Would you like me to fix that for you? And you press the button, it opens up like app.ts, and in the request, it sends in the vehicle array. So it actually does have really cool context. And that the ability to open the right file, at least for me, is a game changer. because which file is it was always hard to find. So, so let's take a look at this demo of theirs. What we're going to cover, like I said, VS Code. We're going to talk about code generation, format conversion. That's something it's really good at. Code fixing, and even terminal support. I'm not going to get into writing like unit tests and stuff, but man, like I hear people go nuts about its ability to write unit tests for you. And that makes sense because if it can explain the code to you, which it's very good at, it should be able to write unit tests, at least the basic ones. And that's pretty cool because that does save you a lot of time, and time is money. Now, if you're a consultant, maybe you want to write them yourself. I don't know, you know. So, all right. All right, I don't want to jump the gun. All right, so now I have undone most of my code in VS Code. So I was playing around with this like the past couple of days, and I think I've undone everything so that I can start from scratch. So pray for me that I've got this right. And so let me take a look here. Looking at a little demo script. Okay, so I started a new chat so that it should forget about everything that we talked about before. I'm going to say, I'm building an application to display electric vehicle data. I want to use Express and TypeScript. Okay. Give me some options for how to structure this app and ask me clarifying questions that will help you suggest the right folder structure. And before I do that, I'm just going to close all this other crap so we can act as if this is a completely virgin thing. And I'm going to hit run. Okay. Can everyone see this okay? Yeah. Sorry, I'm not sure how to actually make that text any bigger. Okay. So it says, sure, I can help with that. All right. And then it asks me some questions. Now, you don't have to say one dot something, blah, 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 blah. You can actually just separate your answers with commas. So using a database, I'll say, yes, PostgreSQL. Right now I'm using a VS Code container. I don't know if anyone knows what those are, but it creates a whole dev environment for you that's self-contained. It's kind of using, I think it's using Docker behind the scenes. It's pretty cool. And then it gives you a Unix prompt and everything. It's really neat. And that's when you find out that you can't use Open in File Explorer anymore. So I will be using a database. Do I want to use a front end framework or library like React or Angular? And I'm going to say, no, I'm not going to use React or Angular. That's too much. Although I guess I could use Vue if I wanted to, or whatever. Will I be implementing auth? Nope. This is going to be super simple stuff. Do you need to include any specific configurations or environment files? I'll say yes. .env. So if you ever write, JavaScript, TypeScript apps, Node apps, there's usually a .env file. And then, are there any other specific requirements or features that you have in mind for your application? And I'll be like, no. All right, so now it's thinking, determining the user intent, searching the project template index, and then, of course, it says, I can't assist with that for whatever reason. I think that's a bug. But it lists a bunch of stuff, and I'm going to say, well, that's a lot of stuff. Simplify it. And now it gives me a nice tree structure. This is kind of nice. So here's what it should end up looking like when it's done. It's kind of nice. So anytime it gives you something that's really long and complex, or it doesn't make, it's just too much stuff, just type simplify and it'll bring it down to just bare bones. This is what you need to know, which is a nice prompt to supply. Let's see. Would you like me to scaffold any specific files? And I'll say, let's see. Uh, Last time I didn't try this. Like yes, scaffold. Um, so we'll see what it does. I don't know. I'll go off script a little bit. I don't care. Oh, okay, cool. So there it goes and writes all the code for me. Yeah. Yeah, that's what these are. Is it this right here that says edit Copilot? Yeah. Let's see what happens if I press that. Oh, no. Okay. It would be nice if I could just do all those. I wonder if I can, do I just type this and it does it? Let's see. Let's see if it creates them all for me. Nope, it doesn't. Anyway, the point is it can create all those files for you if you wanted it to. So we'll just go ahead and start with as if we were new and we didn't have it build all this stuff for us. We'll create an app.ts. That's usually what you start with if you're building a node solution. And then let's see, they had okay. So I'm in this file. I'm going to say simple express server using TypeScript. Okay. And it creates it. This would be like the most basic of things, for a node solution. Now, let's see. But I'm going to refine it. Use types for request and res. It's like, sure. And now it's correcting it for me, based on what I want. And so I can go and add that in, boop, 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 apply an editor. And it'll say, hey, this is what I think you want. And it gives me the options, accept or discard. So I'll say accept, and now I have it. Yay, very cool stuff. Now, um, so we're going to say we want index.html, right? I mean, that's a typical initial page, right? Pretty simple. And then we can apply it in the editor, and it makes only the changes that I need. So accept changes, pretty simple. Yay. Now, let's see, we're also missing, um, let's see, new folder. Oh, index.html. Yeah, yeah, yeah. New folder, public, and then we'll add a new file. Was it index.html? Yeah. Two. And let's see. Let's see. Create a sample index.html file for hello world. I'm just going to ask it to create something for me. I don't really care what the content is because I'm not going to go crazy on this. I'll apply it. It knows to put it in index.html and creates it. Yay, pretty simple. Say I'll accept it. I'll save it. But because I'm using node, and I'm going to end up working with a database, I may want to end up passing data into this, and I might need to use Pug. Anyone know what Pug is? Well, Pug, it's a format. Instead of using HTML, it's a markup language that's just different. So what I can do is I can say, well, I want to add Pug support um, to this app. And it says, okay, well, if you want to do that, you're going to have to add the new view engine. So I can actually now just say, I want to change the structure of my application, and it'll do it for me. And I'll apply it. Boop, 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 boop. And you can see it make the change, which is nice. And it can actually now pass data. It even knows to change the index file and to send the right information to it. So I'll accept that. But I have an index.html file. Well, that's useless if I'm using Pug. So now I go and say, okay, I can highlight this if I want and say, convert this to Pug. And then I apply it and I'm done. See if it does it. Nope, applying code block. There we go. It creates the index.pug file for me, which it should, and then writes the pug. Pugs are cute. So the cool thing about this is not only have we gone and built the scaffolded version of our site, we've also used the conversion feature of Copilot. So if you need to convert between different formats, like let's say JavaScript to TypeScript, or HTML to Pug, or maybe I want to take all this XML and try putting it into JSON. That is now at your fingertips, and you just type it in a prompt, and it takes care of it for you. And if you want, it even creates the new file for you. So if you already had an XML file, you said, I want a JSON version of this, it knows what to do simply through those prompts. Now, I'm not going to get into how it might work. But let's say I broke this. I haven't tried this, so we'll see if this works. I can actually press Control I while I'm in Visual Studio Code and bring up the interactive. So I don't have to use the chat on the right-hand side. I can actually have context for whatever I've selected. I can say /fix. And maybe we'll see if it figures out, like, hey, let's see. Nope, it got the wrong thing. I'm going to say, why is the index.pug not showing? So it knows that there's a typo. It's like, hey, the reason it's not working is you've got a typo. So now I've given it context. I just say /fix. Sometimes it'll just figure that out. Like if a database connection isn't working, /fix works really well. It'll be like, hey, I see that elsewhere you have not initialized your connection string, or you don't have the environment variable set up right. Would you like me to set those up for you? But in this case, I had to give it some more information. I mean, if you looked at the previous response, it's like, you need to add an underscore. That wasn't what was wrong. And any developer, even a junior developer, would have looked at that and seen there's a typo, dude. But remember, it's a really smart, eager, confident junior developer giving you suggestions. But that junior developer has never written a line of code before. So The sky's the limit on the guesses that they make. But after I noticed, like, no, I don't think that's it. This is where using your smarts as a developer comes into play. You come back and you say, no, 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 no. I mean, the index file isn't showing. Here's the problem. With that additional context, it says, oh, I see what you need to fix here. And it can even fix it for you if you want. Kind of cool. So we've covered fixing the code, we've covered translation, we've covered creating code. Another one, here, we'll accept its fix. We can even go over here and say, let's say this is your first time looking at this code base. You're not a TypeScript developer. And, someone says, hey, I need you to go look at app.ts and make sure it's configured right. Like, I want to make sure that, or whatever. And you're like, well, okay, I'll take a look at it, but I don't really know. Well, I'll just go into Copilot and be like, explain this to me. And I'll just highlight the code that I want explained. And now it explains it to me in detail and scrolling completely off the screen. But I think this is a great explanation. The application is set up to use Pug as its template engine. That's an important thing for me to know. Because if I wasn't paying attention, I might be like, oh, this is using HTML or some other view engine. So this is a great overhead explanation. Simply by looking at that code, it tells me what's going on. Here's where what the views directory handles. Yeah. There's a single route defined. So if somebody said, hey, other routes aren't working, well, the plain English explanation tells me a single route is defined. And this could probably tell me simply by looking at the app.ts, or if I gave it more context, like the entire solution, whether authentication is being used, what authentication is being used, what database engine is being used, simply by reading the connection strings. Those are things that an LLM like this, looking at your code, could explain to you very well. And that's something where that junior developer that's very well read, even though they're confident, can actually confidently look at most of the code and probably say what's happening. So when it comes to a ramp up, you could even use not only as you as a developer, but let's say you're a team lead or what have you, you could use this to help write some documentation, to write overviews of your project, to ramp up your developers and save that time. Because how valuable is it having a great overview instead of having your developers getting stuck ramping up all the juniors one by one? Or, maybe they do a conversation like, there's 10 people in the audience and they're explaining to them, well, people learn at different rates. So you don't know if that hour that you spent ramping everybody up really helped anyone except like maybe one person. So Copilot for $10 a month saves you a lot of time and money and energy. And people can understand the code on their own time. Like, I don't understand this one piece. Explain it to me. And then if you're confused, you go and you talk with the team lead or someone else on the team. And now people are more productive, less interruptions for $10 a month. You couldn't hire someone for that legally. Okay. Kind of cool things here that I didn't get into. Like, I love this explanation stuff. It's just incredible. You're not limited just to code. So like when you're in VS Code, you can actually ask it, how do I do certain things like on the command line? So you can actually press Control I, and there it is in the terminal, and say, how do I, uh, let's see, print all the environment variables? 'Cause maybe it says, hey, I think an environment variable for PostgreSQL hasn't been set. But I don't know. I use Windows all the time, PowerShell. I don't know how to do this in Unix or Linux. You know, how do I do it? Well, I just press Control I and have an interactive session that explains how to do something, and I get the same capabilities. It says, would you like to run the command? I think this is awesome. This is just that's such a neat feature. Um, and there you go. So look how much time that just saved you instead of looking everything up online. Like these basic things are just at your fingertips. And the ability to run it, I think, is the real game changer here. Back when you had to copy everything to the clipboard, that one extra step, it's surprising how much that made me less productive. But once it can insert things in the right documents automatically, wow. Like it, even if it was wrong, at least it would give me ideas and it would point me to the right place to do it. So anyway, that's the Microsoft demo. It's actually kind of cool. I could say like if I didn't know how to compile this, um, I could say oh here. Oh yeah, that's the one thing I didn't show. Let's see. Add a route uh, to handle 404 errors and hit enter. So if you write a comment, it'll actually write the code for you. And you just hit tab. By the way, this works in VS Code. It works in Visual Studio too. So if you wanted to write the code for you, you can also have it build documentation for you. And of course, as you've seen, you can write unit tests this way. Pretty neat. Pretty neat. Okay. So hopefully that showed you some of the cool things you can do just by using the interactive mode, the chat mode, etc. It'll give you a lot of information, like uh, let's see, yeah, you can add documentation, explain, fix, and test. Nice slash commands in Visual Studio. You can actually and VS Code, of course. You can give it additional hashtags to say, here's additional context. So hashtag codebase, this is my entire project. A particular file, you can point it to that. So as you're talking to it, you can give it that context. Um, yeah, VS Code. Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff here. You can even say index.html. Yeah, you might even be able to say like convert, add internationalization. I don't know. I haven't tried that, but it'd be kind of cool, to play around with those things, or if you needed like different language versions of stuff. Okay, so that's the some fun with prompts. Hopefully, you learned a lot from that one and found that interesting. I'll get back to my presentation. So yeah, we went over the plugins, we went over code generation, format conversion, code fixing, explanation, the terminal support, and then just all the different prompts that you can give it, and you kind of see how that would speed up your coding. Now, um, I've been using this for a long time now. And by the way, we all know this isn't the first, AI like solution. The tools just keep getting better. Now we have large language models. So code completion is nothing new. But the ability to have context around the code and an understanding around the code, uh, that is relatively new. And when it's based on your specific code, that is also relatively new. So you get a lot of benefits out of that. But it's not a panacea. I, like I said earlier, uh, people were, afraid, a year ago, AI is going to kill your jobs. We'll all be unemployed a year later. Well, here we are, and we all pay $10 a month for Copilot, or at least the company does. As far as I know, people haven't been laid off because all the junior developers were replaced by Copilot or AI. I have not found that to be the case. And Megan, have people been just like laid off in droves because of AI? No. If anything, um, there's a lot of need for software engineers, although the market is the job market, I imagine, is saturated because of all the layoffs. You got all these people looking for jobs, but there's a lot of companies that need the software engineers now. So now it's the hiring process just oi. Oh, okay. So Megan was saying that one of their clients actually expects their developers to use AI. And I know over at M3, like if somebody wants Copilot, I think you just get it. Um, and it really is a game changer when it comes to uh, like what I just showed you. Now, uh, here's the thing. What I showed was a basic example for code generation. And I did that on purpose. Partially, I don't want to show you all my code. Also, uh, it's really good at starting things off. It's not so good when it gets to a much larger code base. It starts to hallucinate more. So I spend about half of my time ignoring the suggestions that come up. It loves to hallucinate about properties. So like I wrote this app called Lick, Liq, that's all about like bourbon and whiskey and beer and wine and tequila collections and reviews, etc. Well, when I would go and create an object that covers like a spirit, I would create all the properties. And it actually would sometimes suggest properties, but I'm like, yeah, I get it. I know what I want. I'll do it. I write it. So now a spirit object exists. And while I'm writing my code, I'll say, okay, var whatever equals new spirit. And I start initializing, open brace, close brace, right? It makes up fields. It makes up properties that don't exist because it thinks a spirit would have all these other fields in it. So I end up having to delete code because it's like it ignores the object already exists. I don't want to make any changes to the object. So sometimes I have to ignore its completion, even though I see it. But I read it and I'm like, oh, like three of these fields don't exist. And I just have to ignore it because I'm going to spend all this time deleting stuff. So I do find that sometimes Copilot gets in my way. And because I have to code check it and then decide whether I want to keep its suggestion. So sometimes it's good, like when it comes to like returning data back from like the database, it'll get most of it right, but it'll get like the return type wrong. And I don't know why, because the function's already been created. It says task of T, where I've already defined the type, and it just like grabs the wrong thing. But it wrote most of the code, so it works out for me. But it also took me, 1 to 3 seconds to quickly review the code and figure out whether I want to keep it. I don't type fast enough to make up for that, so it's worthwhile to hit tab and accept it. Um, but uh, when it works, it's great. When it comes to explaining code, it's great. When it comes to those sorts of things, it's very useful. Um, I know a lot of people use it for unit tests that swear by it, so that's great. because I still think that you need to, like I said, you got to sanity check it. So if it writes a unit test for you, don't be like, cool, the unit test is done, and then send it off for, with a pull request. Always read that code. Um, mhm. Yeah, yeah, edit it. Yeah. So the suggestion was is that it can create README the README markdown files for you, etc., very easily, and does most of the work for you, and then you just go edit. Saves you a ton of time. Um, and then I have found just the bigger the project, the less it seems to understand the big picture. So the context helps. Like now that like Visual Studio and VS Code and Copilot have been improved greatly over the last few months. You couldn't actually specify a file. And now you can. Now you can offer a lot more context. It can take selections into account, etc. So Microsoft is actively making this just better and better all the time. Yeah. Oh, that's cool. I like that idea. I wonder if it could create the sitemap for you. That would be cool. Um, so one suggestion was one way that this has been used is to give a folder of what was in it, the components, right? The components, a folder of components, and then say create a mermaid file for it, right? Um, and it generates it for you, so you can see how everything interacts. So it's very good at analysis. It's very good at analysis. I mean, large language models. I mean, it's implied, right? It's a large language model. It's very good at analysis. So, take advantage of that, and you get increased productivity out of it. Okay, so that's all I had for my explanation there. I hope you got a lot out of that. I was going to open it up for Q&A. Um, so does anyone have any questions, any conversation, any chats to bring up? I'll take a look at the chat. Um, let's see. DMG says the tech ed industry has suffered a bit from companies eager to reduce training budgets in favor of LLMs. Yeah, that I mean, to be fair, you could actually use that. Kemming liked your suggestion for the mermaid stuff. Um, you could actually use Copilot, for training, uh, but yeah, that sucks. I mean, you can't. LLMs are not a replacement for training. They uh, they enable you to do more with the training you already have, like the competency you already have. They're an adjunct to that, but they're not a training tool per se. I mean, I guess them explaining a code base to you would be helpful, but if you don't know the basic concepts, then it's speaking to on deaf ears, or landing on deaf ears. Um, so yeah, I would certainly be against uh, getting rid of training. Now, training though these days is so cheap. Like I remember training being something that was like thousands and thousands of dollars. And now it's like 10, $20 a month. And you go like Microsoft Learn and get, yeah, that's what I was saying. I mean, but like, Pluralsight, etc. That stuff, like those official courses are still there for very little money. And if your company won't invest 20 bucks a month in you, I think you should ask questions. You know, I mean, if they can't afford the 20 bucks a month, I'm not saying quit your job. I'm just saying, yeah, it's not fair. Like you want me to learn how to do all this, but you won't give me the budget to do the training. I don't get it. Oh, and you want me to start, being productive tomorrow. Okay, well, I mean, something's going to have to give, and it might be the person. So, um, let's see. The latest version auto indexes your local file system and auto searches through and includes the appropriate context. Uh-huh. I haven't found it to always do that. Uh, I think the context chemming has been kind of hit or miss, but you know, it's only going to get better. Like anything that we find now that like if we find any limitations, I think it's only going to, you know, and they've just improved it so much anyway. Were there any other questions? Yeah. I don't know. Or wait, who said it? Was it Kemming? Kemming, does it create a vector store for you? Yeah, I think that's why that's probably why you have to have this in the cloud. I mean, just that's where you have the gobs of memory and storage, to do that. Uh, I think it does, but it's not part of the overall. It's not part of it's an adjunct to. Yeah, yeah, and they say that in their privacy views of Copilot. It does say we don't keep a copy of your code or anything like that. So you're safe there. Now we had that one gotcha with the free tier where your code could bleed into data store um, because a snippet could come through, and that who knows that could have a credential in it for all you know. So yeah, dangerous stuff. If you're going to be doing stuff with credentials and stuff, which you do in code, everyone copies and pastes. That was cool. That'd be a cool thing to try. Like type API key. This was a suggestion. Type API key equals, and then see if Copilot fills it in for you. That's cool. That's awesome. That's awesome. I love it. Ship it. Um, yeah, what service is that key for? What GitHub repo did that come from? Tee.
So just a kind of discussion thing, what is the biggest thing that has changed about your conception of what this tool is? Or what's the biggest thing that's changed about your conception of the last year or so?
So what's the biggest thing that's changed about my conception? So in the beginning, I saw a lot of demos of it just simply writing full on code for me. Or not for me, but for in the demo. And I'm like, oh wow. Like that's cool. And it seemed to be spot on. And then I've realized over time that's not the case. And it's good. I'm going back and forth on I still think it's worth the 10 bucks a month. But I'm going back and forth on its code suggestions and whether I think they're gonna get better or worse. So is it my code that just isn't good and I write it in a way that it gets confused and starts to hallucinate? It could be, yeah. Everyone learns differently, even computers. Um, I, yeah, I don't know, I'd like to see I'm hoping I'm seeing the tools get better and better, like the ability to provide context. Uh, I felt like it was really limited in the beginning. They would show these. Oh, he just asked a question. Hold on. When you index my local file system and provide me with correct context, where do you store the vectors? Oh, he just asked it and says, sorry, I cannot assist with that. Yeah, that is classic. Yeah. I'm I'm sorry, human. I'm afraid I can't do that. That's awesome. Um, yeah, that's proprietary. Uh, but in the beginning, like when Copilot, I don't know if anybody remembers when Copilot uh first came out in VS Code, and entire code snippets you would just hit, like you would use like left, right, or whatever, or shift tab. It would just say, oh, here's what I think you're trying to do. Here's what you're trying, here's here. And you would read it and find the one that matched the best of what you're trying to do. That turned into what we have today. But in the middle of that, about let's say a year ago, it was very basic. Like it either got something right or got something wrong, and there's nothing else you could do with it. But it was a preview. And I'm like, well, I don't think I'd pay for this because it keeps getting things wrong. But now you can see the ability to add the additional context, it popping up all over the place, that anytime you need an assist, it's there for you. On the command line, in your code, for translation, writing documentation, building your unit tests, pointing it to the appropriate context. That has made me believe in the tool. But like when I first started using it, I thought about canceling after the first month because I'm like, it's not writing the code for me. Like the things I wanted to do, like I want you to write a REST service for consuming this with refit. I mean, that is a very simple thing to explain to an intermediate developer. They would know what to do and be able to do it. And it would get it right the first time. And I'd say, great, now do that for the rest, like these files. And it would crap the bed. It wouldn't know what to do. I'm like, wait, just repeat what you just did. Just repeat it. Go. And it would give me something that was nonsense, made up, that had nothing. It had one good file, and then it couldn't do the other seven right. And I'm like, no. Do what you did for this file. I would give it the file name. Give me the same output. And I'm like, no, you're wrong. And it goes, oh, I'm sorry. Let me fix that. And then it would give me the same output again. I'm like, no, look at this file. You just did this 30 seconds ago. Well, now 4 minutes ago, because I've tried to ask, using the prompt. I don't know, right? Obviously, I'm not bitter. So now that we have context, I think I might have been able to get better results 6 months ago when I first started really playing with this. Um, because I could be like, here's the file you just did this in. Or maybe it's smart now. Maybe it actually does listen when you say you did this wrong. I still don't understand how that works. But I do think now that there's active improvements to the tool and they're showcasing them, uh, I think it's just going to become part of our daily tool set. Just like you writing documentation with it. So yeah, I believe in the tool now. Long story short, too late. It's now it's a useful tool. Yeah. So what was said in the audience is, uh, originally he thought it was a tool that would write code for him, but now he looks at it as a tool that'll help him write code. You're welcome, Kemming. Thanks. And I did record this, so you can share it if you found it useful. Enjoy, share it as much as you want, free of charge. I make you good. I give you good price. Um, Simple little refactoring. Yep. Yeah. 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 Right. Right. Or take these. Yeah. Right. Change this to a switch. Also take these four functions and run them in parallel, you know? And so create four tasks for these four functions. And I want you to run them in parallel and get me, the results into an array. And it will do things like that. And that's cool because I hate trying to remember how to do some of that stuff. Right. And that's why this is an adjunct, right? If you're a senior developer, you know the questions to ask. Yeah. Point. Yeah. So the philosophical question was, sorry, just making sure I summarize it because it's for people who, I don't know they'll get your audio. Um, is for a number of us in this room are reasonably senior engineers, and we know the prompts to ask. You clearly have had better luck with the prompts than I have, but the question is for the junior developers um, who only use this, and they take the code at face value that it gives them. Are they really learning anything? Because they don't know any better. And I mean, my opinion on that would be it's just like the same people who copy and paste from Stack Overflow. Yeah, it's the same problem. Yeah, oh, I found some code that works, and then I used it, and the same thing would happen with a large language model. Yeah,
I think that.
and well, let me summarize it just for the video. So a teacher in the audience was saying, you have to equip the students with an understanding about how to use these tools, where their place is, and the context of using them, and how to learn while using them. And the tools are going to be part of your life. You can't get away from this. It's not like this isn't going to eventually be built into Visual Studio. It's going to be. Yeah, it's already kind of built in, just without Copilot. Yeah, and now Copilot's free. It's effectively built in. Yeah, all you got to do is have a GitHub account and activate your free. There you go. You got it. 150 million developers that are using the free version of GitHub now have it. Yay, customers. Um, so yeah, there's hopefully I summarized that okay. Yeah.
Change.
Oh yeah.
Because if you understand that, I think the problem, my worry is that people are just gonna have that mindset of, oh, it's just gonna do it for me.
Yeah, and it doesn't do it for you.
It is the best tool because.
Yeah.
Like if I was starting out today, trying to learn all this stuff,
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily have to go, read a bunch of documentation in isolation. I could start looking at code and, had sort of, can you explain what this?
Yeah, explain this code to me.
Why
Yeah.
do that? You can have follow
Yeah.
questions and stuff like that. And it's just,
Yeah.
you can't have her just reading documentation.
Right. Well, and to that point, I mean, I mentor middle school and high school kids, and one thing they all use ChatGPT, even if their parents don't know it. And I was telling, I've told all of them, I'm like, I think it's great they use ChatGPT or any sort of LLM. If it helps you write papers, then okay, it's great for research and summarizing. Um, but you got to make sure that you do the work, if, and you could try passing it off, like let Chat GPT or whatever, any of these, uh, do the work for you, but you'll still fail the test because you didn't learn anything. Yeah. So thank you very much. I hope you learned a lot tonight. I had a lot of fun presenting to you. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up. Auri Rahimzadeh on LinkedIn. You can find the spelling of my name on the meetup site. I'm on Auri.net. And of course, I will be I'll be taking this and making the recording available for everyone. So if you want to review it later, you can absolutely take a look at it. I'll probably get that edited tomorrow or something and upload it. Great. So thank you very much. And I'm going to stop recording now.